Hi everybody, it's Mark Jennings-Bates here with the BigO Rally team, and I want to talk to you again about tires and how to understand what we are purchasing and why we're purchasing it. Now it's coming up to winter, and so one of the great discussions is always about winter tires, and there's a numerous number of questions that we can ask. Let's get into this a little bit, and again I'll use some photographs and maybe some video footage if I can find some of what actually happens in the winter when we make the wrong tire selection. So as I said, winter tires are a bit of a minefield in terms of the choices that we have and the questions that we might ask ourselves as we go to purchase. The first and obvious question for many people is, my tire budget will double if I buy a set of winter tires, so why don't I just use my regular tires from the summer to get through the winter? I'm sure it'll all be fine. Well, I'm here to tell you that it won't be fine, and the place where you're going to see it most is braking. The difference in braking between a all-season tires and a winter tire is absolutely radical, and in some instances, I'll tell you frankly, you will not get off a level driveway if it snows in a true set of summer tires. There's just no traction available, and that's for one very simple reason. The compound is too hard. It doesn't work below 7 degrees, and so you get a little frost on your driveway, it's maybe warmed up to 2 or 3 degrees, your compound is not ready to work, and so you'll find that even on a flat driveway or with a very small incline, you're stuck. You can't move your car anywhere. Now turn that around to braking and imagine what might happen in an emergency situation. It is critical that you start thinking about, if you haven't already, investing in a set of tires to be able to use for the winter. Your alternative in Canada now is to use what they're referring to as an all-weather tire. And of course in Canada, if you live in certain parts of Canada, you can see weather almost in the summer that resembles winter. So we may get snow, and we've had that this year actually on some of the high passes in 2018. We've had forest fires at the same time as we're getting snow in the high alpine. And so you may see that, so it's sometimes a slightly wiser choice to be able to do that. However, if you live in the interior of BC, where there's a good chance you're going to be seeing some very heavy snowfall, some big opportunities to drive on ice and those kinds of situations, then you need to be thinking very definitely, in my mind, about a winter tire. And I'll tell you quite frankly, we've tested a variety of tires. We've looked at a winter tire range, we've looked at worn winter tires, and we've looked at new all-season tires, and frankly the new all seasons will not perform as well as an almost bald set of winter tires, and it comes back to the compound again. Are we driving with the right compound that actually works and does its thing below 7 degrees? And if you haven't got that winter tire or that all-weather tire, then you're struggling. All-season tires, summer tires are definitely a no-no in the winter. They will not help you at all. But there are opportunities like Vancouver perhaps, or some other Victoria, some other cities that have this coastal temperate kind of weather pattern where you don't see very much snow and you don't see very much frost, and in which case that all-weather tire might be good for you. If you're a bit of a weekend warrior and you love going up to Grouse or to Whistler or to Big White in Kelowna, then you definitely need to be looking at winter tires in order that you can comfortably get to the ski hill without any problems. Even if you have a two-wheel drive car, the right set of winter tires can be good for you. So what is it that we're looking for, and what differentiates the different types of winter tires? Well, one of the things that you're going to see a lot is siping in the winter, and that's where we take a typical tread block, and I'm going to put a video up here so you can see typical tread block, and we cut it through the tread block. The more siping that we have essentially is giving us a bigger area, a bigger surface area for that compound to actually reach the ice. So it opens up a little bit and it'll reach the ice and give us some slightly better traction. A well-siped tire is very good on ice, typically, is what you will find. Sometimes that type of tire is not quite as good in the snow, in a heavy snowfall, as it would appear to be in the ice. It has a bias towards being very, very good on ice. And that's because with all that siping, we can sometimes trap snow in there and it doesn't clear very easily. So that can be a bit of a problem for us. But when our tires are up to an operating temperature, they typically change the way they work a little bit. And so a good winter tire is going to have an element of siping and an element of a slightly open tread pattern so that we can clear snow when we need to and still get our traction. And really when we're driving in snow, what's happening is we compact it, and with the heat we're creating ice anyway, so that ice tire is always going to serve you well. So my choice in the winter for me driving in the interior BC is to look for that siped pattern that is slightly open enough for me to be able to clear the snow when I'm driving in those heavy snow conditions, but also know that when I'm on a polished icy road on black ice, that I have a tire that's going to stop me. And it is remarkably different when you're driving, and when we do the tire testing, you'll see exactly, if we're driving on a lake, you will see what kind of control we have even on a frozen flat lake with a good designed ice tire. That's really important for you. So winter can be a little bit difficult, a little bit challenging, because not only do we have these differences in the construction, in the way we have a look at tread blocks and whether they're siped or they're not siped. And again, the more siping we have, the more likely we're going to get better traction on ice. But we also have the ability to put studs in our tire. And what I find typically is studs come into fashion, go out of fashion. They vary a lot. And I remember actually my very first winter rally was the Kananaskis rally in Alberta, and I showed up with a set of I-pikes, I think it was, without studs, and everybody looked at me and said, "You have to be crazy, you're going to run a rally without studs." Well, my experience driving prior to that was that I didn't see a substantial difference with studs. Everybody said, "Well, nobody ever does this rally without studs, and good luck." Well, I think we came second in that particular rally, so it didn't hold us back too much at all. And if you do find the right winter tread and the right winter compound, then you're going to find that you have a very confident experience in that car. And that's really what we're looking for. In the winter, we still want you to be able to do an emergency lane change, which often is easier to avoid an accident and safer than it is just to simply brake. We may just be able to avoid that elk or deer or moose or whatever it is with a swift lane change rather than braking and hitting that animal more slowly. Well, in the summer, that seems a little bit easier than it might do in the winter, but the winter will still allow us to do that with the correct tire. So we've got the debate between studs and studless. At the end of the day, if you put studs in, I've even read journalists who say that you'll get better traction on ice. I will tell you that that is not the case. If it's a very, very cold day and it's black ice, you will find that studs will skate on top of the ice, and you'll probably find traction may be comparable to how it would be with an ice tire, but it's not differentially not that much better. Where studs come into play is when we have a heavy snowfall and a hard packed snow. So if we have the graders going over and they're leaving just an inch or two of snow and it's getting packed, then our studs can actually penetrate into that harder packed snow, and that gives us more substantial traction. They often can be mentally, they can be the cure for us. I've got studs, I'm good, I can get through the winter. But there are two areas where they're bad. One is certainly on black ice, they're not necessarily that good. They give us a false confidence. The other is actually on dry roads. So if we're running studs on dry roads and we need to stop, well, there's certainly going to be an awful lot of sparks, but you'll find that stopping distance will be impacted negatively by the studs that you're driving on. So sometimes we can overcome that by just letting the pressure down in the tire a little bit, which allows the studs to sink into that tread just a little bit more, but we're getting some contact with the rubber in emergency stop. What I would say is you actually can take most of those tires, take them without studs, and they will get you through the winter just fine. If you're going up to the ski hill again every weekend and you're driving on a road that's been graded and we're getting packed snow more and more and more, then those studs are going to be helpful for you, and they'll stop you getting stuck a little bit. If you can imagine just sliding and getting stuck in a little bit of snow, sometimes because we're on snow, that stud can help us get out. But it's not the cure-all for the winter. So more importantly, do some research on the compound that you're buying, and sometimes there are some very innovative solutions like putting ground nutshells into the compound, which is a little bit like tiny studs inside the rubber, and that's very, very important. In some respects it can make a big difference to the tire. There are some tires that stand out incredibly well in the winter on tests, and there are some that actually are not very good at all. So definitely read tests about winter tires and the conditions that they favor, because at the end of the day, if you put a bad set of winter tires on your car and you have a bad experience, you will be disinclined to drive in the winter, or you will be a nervous driver. And it's radically different. In fact, my wife this year had a bad accident with her car where somebody came around the corner, and I'd passed them because I was thankfully just in front of her on a high mountain pass, and I saw what looked like a very nervous driver, and clearly what had happened is he was driving a vehicle in a snowstorm on a mountain pass with summer tires that were very worn, and so he didn't do anything other than try and steer around the corner. The car did not respond to the steering input, and he just sailed across the road and had a head-on collision with my wife and wrote off a car. Thankfully my wife was okay, and she was on a fresh set of winter tires that she really loved that got written off with the car itself. But find that good pair of tires, good set of tires, and you will find that you drive very confidently, and never ever your BigO tire store will not do this for you, so don't do it and not let them know. Don't ever mix up summer and winter tires on the same car. So you will see people with front-wheel drive cars sometimes will just put winters on the front and they'll leave the backs alone, or they'll put winters on the back if it's rear-wheel drive. That is a death trap in that car. There's no way you can figure out how to stop or how to control that car. So if you have winters on the front, you do an emergency lane change, well, the front's going to respond extremely well as you change lanes, and then the back is going to follow and keep following and overtake the front in a hurry, so you'll end up going backwards. So just don't do it. Get a full set of winter tires for the winter, or all-weather tires as we're talking about now, although my preference would be winter tires to help keep you safe. That's our tip for this week. We'll get into a little bit more so that you can find out a little more about how to understand a tire before you purchase one.